Welcome back to Nigeria Decides 2023 here on the Arise News channel. For greater retrospection and analysis of the evolving political process, we are now being joined by our regular in-house panelists on This Day Live here on Arise News. And we have today Professor Bola Akinterinwa, Director General Bola Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Professor Anthony Kila, Director Center for International Advanced and Strategic Studies, and Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director in Office Enough. Well, good to see the This Day Live panel here on this special edition, Nigeria Decides 2023. The whole day, we've been discussing election. Yesterday's presidential and National Assembly elections involving over 4,000 candidates in over 176,000 polling units across the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria, and a total of 470 seats up for grabs, 369 in the National Assembly and 1 presidential seat. We've had different perspectives, and I'm sure you've been watching. So let's start with you, Yemi Adamolekun. I'm sure you were on the field. So what are the major takeaways for you in terms of INEC performance, in terms of lessons learned, in terms of the entire process, whether democracy is growing or, as some people have said, this is, I leave you to your own judgment.
Well, a bunch of different things, I'd say. I was quite focused in Lagos. We had a call center for INEC Lagos, because INEC Lagos only had 3 telephone lines to field calls. So EIE set up a call center to field calls from Lagosians that we would then escalate to INEC officials if we were unable to answer them. So the general kind of sense or narrative that has followed Lagosians is that there's a larger interest, especially by the younger population, in the process. And you saw that in the numbers that came out. At the same time, you also saw that in the outcomes of those areas, and we'll come back to that a bit. Nationally, for INEC, I would say that, the commission needs to be commended. This is the first time we haven't postponed elections since 2011. So 2011 was postponed, 15 was postponed, 2019 was postponed. So definitely commendation to them for that. But then in Lagos particularly, post that, then we then entered some of the challenges that we've had. And as you've talked about, challenges of logistics, challenges of communication, I dare say. You have a whole local government like Etiosa where materials just fail to arrive at different times. And you saw that also in pockets of the country as well, where people will be delayed materials. And people stayed. And I think that's part of the interesting bit. Obviously, you would lose people as the day wears on and you're not sure, information is not being provided. That being said, you also then had, in focusing on Lagos again, same Etiosa, and I'll say also Oshodi, Solo local government, areas where, and in Surulere, where we also saw footage online of, Lagos is very much an APC state. It's been an APC state since 1999, where in areas where there was a real threat to APC dominance, APC pushed back in very violent ways. One of the attackers at one of the polling units in Etiosa, for example, is alleged to be a director at Lagos Inland Revenue Service. So when you now even have employees of the state now taking up, in a sense, to deliver in an effort to deliver for their party or deliver their polling unit for their party, then begin to engage in pretty much illegal activity, that causes some concern. But I think for me, the common thread in all of this was INEC silence. At no point yesterday did we see a statement, did we see the REC get on any form of medium to communicate to Lagosians that we're aware that this is happening, this is what we're doing about it, and this is what we're trying to have happen. In Etiosa, there was a footage of an INEC official that actually came to a particular polling unit and just tried to explain that, look, we're understaffed and we're unable to, and there are requirements by law of the number of people that need to be at every polling unit. We can't meet that requirement, is why you haven't seen people. But this was literally at maybe 12:30 in the day, and people had been standing since 7. In VGC, for example, people were voting till 5 o'clock this morning. So I think INEC could do a lot better in terms of communication, both INEC National and INEC Lagos, very general INEC issue. could do a lot better in terms of communicating with residents what's happening. Even today, there was an official statement about Bayelsa, but then there were pockets of people saying, oh, in certain polling units, voting continues today. But unless I missed it, I didn't see any formal communication from INEC that said, in this state, in this polling unit, elections will continue today. I think it's also been interesting to just see the dynamics of the leading presidential candidates, who was leading in which polling unit, who won in their polling unit, and what that said or didn't or doesn't say, as the case may be. And I'll say lastly on kind of this round of my reflections is voter turnout. There was a sense that there was going to be huge voter turnout. It seemed like it, depending on where you were, but the early numbers that are coming out say that we might be lower than 2019's voter turnout. And that would be a very interesting conversation, given sort of the hype to this election, to then have fewer people show up to vote. And what that means, is it a referendum on democracy, referendum on the process, referendum on the election management body, referendum on the leading presidential candidates? What does it mean? What does it say? But when the numbers come out, it'll be an interesting conversation to have.
That would be quite shocking, actually, because 2019, we had less than 35% of registered voters coming out to vote. So for it to be even lower, especially following events that we've seen in the country and SARS, etc., that would be very shocking.
Indeed.
Professor Akinterinwa, let's come to you now and get your views on what we've seen since the polling units opened yesterday morning.
I think the election has given us a new thinking. First of all, does charity always begin at home? We have been told that from this election, charity does not begin at home at all. We have been told, as published, that Labour Party won the polls in the Bodilon Road area. This is where the Jagaban himself lives. I do not expect that the APC wouldn't make that stronghold their first area of interest. There is also this charity not beginning at home in Aso Rock. In 3 different units there. One would have expected Mr. President to have also won, his immediate constituencies. The message from there is that the people working in Aso Rock actually do not believe in what Mr. President is doing. Voting, allowing Labour Party to win in Aso Rock is a protest against Mr. President. And I will link this one to Bill Clinton and to Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. Media reports have it that Chief Obasanjo lost the election. But we know that Obasanjo is not a candidate. In the same way, when Bill Clinton came to Nigeria, and I remember saying that, Mr. Bill Clinton, you lost the election in the US. And people said, but he didn't contest. But I said, but he was the leader. You are leading the Democrats. The Democrats lost. How can you dissociate yourself there? If you are personified, it's exactly what we are witnessing. This is a protest vote against Mr. President. That's the first point. Secondly, I had the opportunity of monitoring discussions on Arise TV since yesterday, 24 hours non-stop. And in this case, there was the issue raised by the civil society.
Prof, did you monitor today too?
I have been monitoring.
Oh, okay.
Up till this time.
Good to hear that.
Now, in this case, the civil society woman discussant raised the issue or complained about the INEC. You were the one who even asked her, are you indirectly or directly saying the other observer, the Democratic Center by Professor Gibrin, is a Yahoo observer, because she was talking about wuru and you see all this mania of doing things. The point I'm drawing attention to there is that you have one observer group that believes, that recommends that INEC has done well. But she, on behalf of the other observer group, she convinced me as a professional student that they were very diligent in the observation. And they are saying INEC could not be said by anyone to have done well. She even said that whoever pretends, purports, saying that INEC has done well must be anti-Nigeria, not patriotic. Now, how do we explain the fact that we have two groups monitoring the same, polling units, and they are looking at it differently? I will concede that yes, for reasons of psychology of human differences, you may not look at that way. But when you look at what is happening now, since yesterday, many of the points you have raised as well, and you too, now you will discover that there's no way one can objectively say that INEC has done very well. For two reasons, I think that INEC cannot be considered to have done well. You have 4 years of preparation. In 2019, Dr. Abati, you raised the issue of 4 years. I remember Yemi as well commented to say, look, how could you say that you do not have time? The same problem of logistics. It has become recidivist in character. You are given budget and you are paid the money well in advance. So there's no excuse to give. So in this case, there are too many critical issues involved. But let me submit here, hypothetically, and I've been saying it here. It is only in Nigeria that the government, the policymakers, think after action. They do not always think before. And I've always said that it is not on record. We have not seen where the government has learned any lesson from the past. Absolutely. They don't have. Now, what is happening? I am hypothesizing now that, look, it is simply because the government, the APC government, has the deliberate intention to rig election, and because for reasons of force majeure, it has not been easy to rig. That is why we have been faced with the current challenges. Please, I will be surprised that you are surprised that all these things are happening. I'm surprised because the governor of Akwa Ibom gave a press conference where he complained about government's, attitude to his state insecurity, and he drew attention to the fact that the APC has an agenda to rig. I have the tape, something here. Now he said, from the printed ballot papers, where you will have somebody giving birth to around 1932, 1933, and the photograph pasted there clearly shows that, look, how can a 27-year-old person have wrinkled, face? No, you have people, they will put female, but the photograph of a man will be there. Please, this thing is there. This is not just social media, something where we will be talking about fake news. I have it here. Okay. It's a press conference he gave. Now, he warned government by that time, and they now said, look, under no circumstance will the people of Akwa Ibom accept the holding of elections on different days, that the elections must be held the same day. Now, there are pointers to rigging. What is it that we have done? And what is happening as of today, we can now see. I will conclude my observation on a preliminary basis that, look, why? I think, I don't know who asked the question, either you, whether it's Niyi. The issue is, why is it that we are having challenges in the same area? Every time I had one of you asking, I noted that one. Why is it that the problem is always in either Okota or Ojota or Alaba and all those things? I was taking copious notes when you were raising this, and I was looking, listening to the answers. Very funny. So you see, look at Atiku. He said something. He said, I am very confident of winning. Tinubu said, I am too confident of victory. Kwankwaso said, I am optimistic. All right? Looking forward that, look, I'm optimistic to win. But Peter Obi said, well, only God will determine who will do this. You will now see the attitudinal disposition of everyone, how they see things. And I think that if a Peter Obi will leave his own future, everything to God to handle, that should tell you that, look, this will be the pattern, this will be the requirement, this will be the approach, bringing God into everything. Without that, last Sunday, when you asked us to provide reminiscences to think about the election, yesterday, I decided that, look, God, in your infinite mercy, please have mercy on these politicians. Because I have known that, look, the agenda, politicians, etc., all along, you will always say, well, they have their own selfish interest, that they don't care about all others. Yes, when the system allows for it, then what should you expect? Again, may God be with Nigeria in this particular case. Because the way we are going, we are still working consciously towards national disintegration. You may think it is simple. When you look at how wars are started, you go back to 1866, the Battle of Sadawa. Minor things that people do not take serious. That's what happens. But may God help us.
Okay, Prof, just a little caveat. You were talking about President Buhari losing at some polling units at Aso Villa. Well, I don't know where you got your data from, because what the INEC chairman told everyone when he was declaring open the National Collation Center at about 10 minutes after 1 today was that only INEC is empowered to release official figures. And INEC has not started releasing official figures in terms of results yet. So maybe you were quoting from social media or quoting from some other report, but INEC says in due course, it will publish its own results. So maybe we wait for that before we begin to quote who won where, who lost where. As
of today that we are discussing, yes, I based my information analysis on what is made available to me. If tomorrow there's a change, that's the beauty of being a scholar student. Look here, look at this tree. Here.
Newspaper. Which newspaper is that?
This is Sunday.
Yeah, but I'm just quoting what the INEC chairman has.
No, I agree with you.
In terms of clarification. So
I agree with you.
Don't let us quote
no, what I am saying,
that have not
what
been
I am saying
released.
is that I based my opinion on what I have read.
Okay.
Right. So if it is faulty,
yeah, but the caveat is also important, so that we are all on the same page. Now, let me come to you, Professor Anthony Kila, for your own take, your perspective, what you have observed, and what you think could be done to improve on the process.
Well, I think generally elections are sometimes a prism of the society, like a selfie or a mirror of the society where election is taking place. In most parts of the world, there are three major figures in elections, i.e. the voters, the politicians, and the media. In Nigeria, there's a list that goes up to 7 because then you have to include the voters, the media, politicians, INEC, i.e. the regulator, the police, and the observers, which makes it a larger table to sit on. In terms of INEC, one starts with looking for a reason to be thankful, to say we've made some way forward. And perhaps there are two things. The fact that the election was not postponed, albeit extended. But more importantly, I think the fact that you can vote immediately after accreditation. You don't have to do 2 journeys, not go home, then come back. I think those are marginal improvements. I am not a fan of marginal improvements. I like quantum leaps. And I think if the election is a mirror of Nigeria, the way the election is being managed by INEC screams of incompetence and an inability to foresee scenarios, which is what rational thinking is about. Because this idea of not enough staff, not enough time, not enough materials, quite frankly, it's not something that can be justified for the kind of institution INEC pretends to be in our electoral system. I'd like to remind viewers that the budget Nigeria spends on election, especially when we compare it to our GDP, is 10 times what England spends, is 12 times what Belgium spends. It's about 27 times what a lot of countries spend. And, we need to look at it that way. But that is where we are. Part of this is a cost of the society where there is no trust. Because where there is trust, you don't need to go about with those kind of boxes that looks like things they use for organ donation. I saw those black boxes that they were carrying up and down. That's extra expensive. To deploy all those security people, there's something barbaric, shameful about it, that for us to conduct elections, we have to declare almost a zone of war in the country. And by the way, people are saying this thing. I think somebody needs to say it, and nobody has said it. Shame on the Nigerian police, everywhere they've been, for what is going on. I think the Boy Scouts will have done better than them. At least the Boy Scouts of the 70s, they were more disciplined. They managed Principal's Corps, those who grew up in that era, who know they could do better things. They were just spectators, actually, and it was a very bad thing. Then we go to politicians. Nigerians, regardless of how you vote, it is important to realize that in this country, the people aiming to govern us are either criminals or potential criminals. The fact that people can sit down to say, for me to win, I would endorse, plan, conceive, or allow people to go and beat up other people, snatch ballot boxes. We're not dealing with gentlemen. And we need to start thinking that way. You said, how do we improve the situation? If we want to improve it, the first thing we need to know is that amongst us, there are people willing to cheat and steal to get what they want. And I think that would be a very crucial starting point. Personally, the voting process, I think luckily, was quite easy and straightforward for me. But the reports we get shows that there are issues elsewhere. And that takes me to observers, especially the international ones. Because they play a prominent role. They give them big headlines and big coverage. they met this person and they met that. I'm starting to doubt their usefulness. And I think they need to be called to account, because what are they? Are they tourists traveling on free tickets? Are they coming to, at best, look at the situation and write a book 2 years later the line? Or are they actually useful for this process for which they get fame and fortune? Because really, if you look at it, anywhere, in most places in the world where these people come from, especially the ones that come from the West, if a tenth of what has happened in Nigeria in the past 24 hours had happened in their countries, headlines will be screaming. You know, the BBC will be shouting, the newspaper will be talking about it. We are dealing with this as if let's just take it as it goes. You know, shame on us, it's our problem, not theirs really. But what it tells us as a people is that our standard is so low that we have to be thankful that after accreditation you can vote. Our standard is so low that we have to be grateful and feel accomplished because the election was not postponed. That sounds like the index of measuring a class of special needs. You know, you're not looking at competent people here. There's no A student here. There's no tough, hard, dedicated, visionary, leadership, committed, integrity-based people here. And this is a problem. If we're going to get it right, you see, this thing, I repeat, regardless who anybody has voted, if we think that people who are willing to cheat, to buy, to beg, to bribe, to bend the rules will get into power and do something noble, then we're fooling ourselves. It's not going to happen. How many of these people, you counted them earlier on, how many are they? What is election about? Election is about less than 4,000 people hoping to secure new jobs or to retain their current jobs in the whole country. Actually, it's way less than that, because what is it? 360-something for House of Reps, 109 for Senate, a president and his vice. That is what we're dealing with yesterday and today. And if we have to shut down the whole country just because less than 500 people want to get a job, it doesn't make sense. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves. And I believe that we need to go back to the sociology, to the technology of making sure we do not need to do all that, because it doesn't speak well of us. So whilst we wait for, the result, we need to know that, well, I can't say a lot has been done. Few has been achieved, many more need to be achieved. By the way, part of what we say, let us pick on the president who violated the law for showing his ballot paper. I understand why he has done it, but I think he violated it, and there should be penalty. It's not enough for me to call him out morally. That's all I can do. I think somebody somewhere needs to call that out if we want to improve these things.
Certainly. We will come back to the panelists in the studio, but first, a short while ago, we reported that presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, has asked the national chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, to instruct collation officers for Saturday's election to upload the results from the polling units to the INEC portal immediately. Atiku, in a statement on Sunday from his media office, says that the call for the immediate uploading of election results on INEC's portal has become necessary to checkmate some governors whom he claims are trying to compromise the results at the local government collation level. Let's link up with the spokesman for the Atiku campaign organization, Daniel Bola. Good afternoon and welcome to Arise's coverage of the elections. Can we discuss this in more detail? How does the PDP intend on acting here based on what you have observed so far?
Right. So, Leila, thank you for having me. Let me start by saying that legitimate results are announced by INEC. So whatever any political party says is not the verdict of INEC. I need to make that clear. But every political party has what we call a situation room where there are field officers bringing in data on real time as they are collected. Now, on the basis of that, from yesterday to today, we have seen that we have a clear lead. As a matter of fact, even the result of our opponent suggests we have a clear lead because of this following. Number one, in the Southwest, we are competing. Now, the candidate of APC has the Southwest, which he must win all, but he is struggling because his votes are being reduced by Labour and us. Atiku Abubakar and the candidate for APC is not anywhere in the South-South or Southeast. Meanwhile, if you look at the result from our opponent and ourselves coming in all the places apart from Lagos and Kano, apart from these two states, in every part of Nigeria where Atiku is not number 1, he's number 2 and not number 3. Meanwhile, the other candidates are in number 2 and 3, and that's how they roll. If you have seen the Northwest, you will see the states were collecting. For the records, in the polling unit of about 6 governors of APC, Atiku defeated them. So we are happy that we are in the early lead. We are happy that we have covered the spread by virtue of these statistics that I have given you. Final comes from INEC. Please let everybody know. However, we have, there's a disturbing trend, which was why the candidate of our party called for INEC to release that. A while ago, I was in another TV station where the spokesman for INEC was interviewed, and he was asked question as to why that the results at the polling unit that were collated, that were recorded for both President and National Assembly, why is it that it is only that of the National Assembly that is being uploaded to the IREF and not that of Presidential? And his response was that it is up to the officers at the field, that they did not give them specific reason why they shouldn't, but that they are the ones doing it and that they will take effort, that the chairman will make the effort to direct them. Here is the question. If it is like that, the pattern cannot be uniform throughout Nigeria. It would ordinarily have been in different places. So that's why we're calling on the INEC chairman to cause an immediate upload of the result into the IREF. Because what is the big deal about snapping and uploading it? There was a mock trial that was done, and all the impression we're giving is that there is no problem at all. 24 hours. And INEC is just about 30% of the IREF. In the next 1 or 2 hours, you're going to start announcing the result. So there are certain things that aren't clear, and we need clarification in that regard. Number 2, and importantly, from the field report, different political parties are having is that there are pockets of places where the results were recorded into the result sheet that are not original. Now, it is to be proved later. And then as soon as they moved from the polling unit to the ward, that is when they are now going to be recorded into the original. So INEC has assured us that their result sheet has security features. So we are calling on INEC based on section 67, I think 68 or so, the power of INEC to review results. We are calling on them on all the results that are submitted. They need to review the result sheet as against the one uploaded at the polling unit to be sure that those results tally and they are not inconsistent. We are not prepared to hear this is the result, go to court. We want a transparent process. Then in other states in the north, we have seen where governors are going to the INEC office. There is no reason why any governor should go to any INEC office for whatever reason. The rest of the issues about violence and then pictures emerging where people are thumbprinting, these are issues to come later. So we are comfortable with our lead, we are happy, but we are calling on INEC not to give room for those who want to rig this our election by the effusion of time to do that.
Well, Daniel Bola, it's not only the PDP that is calling on INEC to upload results urgently. In fact, one other political party is saying, oh, this is a case of electoral robbery, and that the election, the presidential election in particular, should be cancelled. But we had Festus Okoye, the INEC commissioner in charge of voter education, on this program not too long ago, a few minutes ago. And he was saying that IREF is up and running, that the portal is up and running, and that results are being uploaded. Could he be talking about another portal that is different from the one you are talking about? And then a word of caution. You are saying that your candidate, where he's not first, he's second. No, nobody can announce any result. INEC chairman, I keep repeating it, said around 10 minutes after 1 today that INEC is the only body that can release official results, and that until INEC does so, people should disregard whatever anyone is announcing as the outcome of the process. So, your word against INEC.
Well, Dr. Abati, I'm surprised, even after I established that this is our opinion based on our data and that it is not the verdict of INEC, and I think I did that 2-3 times. I do not think that is not a statement in caution. It is a statement in caution. But nobody will take away our right to express ourselves based on our recording, as long as we throw the caveat to the Nigerian people, which I did, because as a lawyer, I know the implication of every state. Secondly, the same TV station that I was in, he was interviewed before I was interviewed. And when he was asked about INEC, if I take it on the basis of what you say, he told you that the IREF is up and running. Why is it that after 24 hours, you have only 30% or about 40,000? Since yesterday, we started hearing the information that it was slow, it was slow, it was slow. And when they did the mock, it was not like that. So I think it is better for him to admit that the IREF is slow, the upload is very, very slow. In fact, first to even apologize to Nigerians and say it is very, very slow, but we are taking our time to ensure that it is done fast. But you cannot say that it is up and the entire election in most parts of Nigeria were conducted yesterday. But and the results started counting yesterday, so we have yesterday and today, just something to snap and then upload, and you say that it is up and running. I don't think that's the right way for them to communicate. So, and I'm happy that it is all political parties, at least I know of Labour, who are asking that it be uploaded. That does not confer any comparative advantage to anybody. We are saying that where elections are conducted, results are recorded, there is no reason why by now it has not been uploaded to the IREF. We are calling on INEC to please do so. And we are calling on the law enforcement to also watch out for some of those uncalled acts by various people, wherever they are, whether it is our political party or any political party. Then finally and again, I am happy that we're in a comfortable lead, and we're hopeful that the result that INEC will declare at the end of the day will probably be okay.
What are you basing... Sorry, go for it, Doctor.
You just must insist on your version of the truth. Anyway, thank you very much, Daniel Bola, for joining us. Thank you very much. Well, let's come back to you, Professor Anthony Kila. Your reaction to this failure or the slowness the portal in terms of the upload of results. Well, because INEC have promised that it will happen real time.
Yeah.
But Daniel Bola says what is being done is not good enough.
Well, it's not Daniel Bola says. We all see that it's not good enough. Daniel Bola wants it to work because he wants to win election. You know, he wants to go into power. That's what politicians do. I argue that what they're doing is wrong because one, the whole essence of digitalizing the system is that you want it instantly. And that is why anybody who runs an organization today, when people send you an email or they send you a chat on WhatsApp, they go bonkers if you don't reply them within 5 minutes. You know, that's the new world. From the day we started with Polaroid camera and instant coffee, the world has changed. It was a gradual thing, but the Polaroid camera changed the world. People are just talking of the internet. The fact that you can get your photograph immediately, that is the way humanity reasons now. It's a new species, and INEC needs to catch up. The other reason why it is wrong is that they promised, not me, not you, they said we're going to upload. For not uploading, there's a breach of contract there. You know, in common law, if you say you're going to offer something and you're not doing it, there's something wrong. And I argue that there should be consequence for it. You know, somebody somewhere needs to pay, either in a civil way for their career or for whatever is what. I think INEC is doing their best. I don't want to scapegoat them. I just think their best is not good enough. And part of the reason why it is important to upload immediately is that if you're a regulator, if you're an arbitrator, if you're a judge, one of the things you need to do is to act in a way that does not allow the parties in conflict to suspect you of being partisan. So you have to take away all doubt. You have to be proactive, not reactive, not responsive. You have to think ahead that if I act this way, what are the likely things to happen? And you see, systems where things are taught true, it's a pity that we do not enjoy the strategic and the philosophy of processes anymore. Those who went to a proper teacher training education will know that you're even taught as a teacher not to dress in a certain way because it might affect the concentration of students. You have to think scenarios through. You have to, if you're in charge of a process, you have to think it through that if we upload, what is the likely effect? If we do not upload, what is the likely effect? And please, I understand that technologies have glitches. There are problems. But there might be a problem for an undergraduate or even a postgraduate who's submitting his or her own dissertation to say, my system crashed. But for INEC to tell me of glitches is unacceptable. You know why? It is possible to foresee the exact amount of results to be uploaded. You can calculate the terabyte, the gigabyte, and you know what you do? You add plus X to it. You can calculate the amount of data you need for the whole process, and you add X to it, so that whatever happens, you are fine. You can calculate the amount of bags or buckets or papers that you need to be printed, and you add an extra percentage to it, so that whatever happens, there is backup. And this is Nigeria. Sadly for us, we know there will be always some people who will try to snatch ballot boxes, disrupt elections. You plan it along. And that's the whole point of being a rational human being. That is the whole point of strategic management. That is the whole idea, that you act in view of likely events. To this point, I think we've not done well. Let me come back to a constituency you will not be comfortable with, Dr. Abati. It is the media. I think the media is not doing, see your face. It is not, the media is not doing enough for us, but they still have time to make amends. Because you see, in the world where we live in, if there is a report, even if it's a rumor, that there is violence in one place, I expect, besides listening to people making platitudes all day long, I expect direct investigations to that matter, to go and see what really happened, eyewitness account. There are situations in the world where we have had court judgments based on media reports. That it is, given that we do not have CCTV in Nigeria, let people who go and cover, investigate, interview, gather evidence, and let the world know. Because whilst we wait for the judiciary and the police to act, part of the reason why people are not doing things is because they will be named and shamed. So we need to look into that. If the EFCC reports that they've gone to somewhere and they found money on some people, it's been 72 hours or more, and we do not know who these people are. That doesn't make sense. They need to be called out. And if the EFCC has no right to say they're keeping that record for no reason, because this information is a commonwealth. The whole essence of democracy is transparency. The best you can come, raison d'etre, the reason of the state, the high reason, is something you apply in very rare cases. Not the case of somebody stealing or fibbing. It has to be something like a nuclear war. That's when you can declare it. And I do not have hope in politicians. I have hope in citizens. I have hope in people. And I do think people need to wake up and take hold of the system. This is perhaps the last event we have before the election. Part of my hope is that whenever they announce the result, by Wednesday, let people go back to be citizens again. No more followers of this leader or that party. Let people go back to go and say, now, this is what we have. What do I want for myself? And then let's hold everybody accountable. Because I think what is going to help us, well, we still have another round of voting in a couple of weeks' time. But I think what's going to help us is to start rethinking INEC now. The INEC of what, 2027? We should start planning for the 2027 election right at the end of March. Maybe give them a week or two for break. That's enough, given that they get paid every month.
At the end of every election cycle, we always say these are the plans that we should put in place ahead of the next, right? Recommendations. And it must be frustrating when not addressing the issues that are happening in front of us at this very moment in time. And I'd like to switch this conversation up a bit now and bring in the youth here and speak.
Before you do that,
sure.
Just piggyback on the points he's made around BVAS and IREV and a couple of things. So it's very difficult. INEC can say all they want, that they're going to do official announcement, and that's fine. You can declare the winner. Once you declare it, then it becomes headline on this day. But INEC cannot stop citizens from adding 2 + 2 to get 4. Part of the whole idea of IREV is to make it transparent. So it's a blessing and a curse, because the blessing is that we all get to see the results in real time. And if I know that a particular ward has 10 polling units, if the 10 polling unit results have been uploaded, I can add them up and say this is the person that won. And I don't think that INEC can stop that. So they kind of need to calm down about that whole you can't, because you've given us the data to do it.
Well, that's a catch-22, because the problem is this. Ideally, people should be able to say what has happened in their polling unit in their ward. As a matter of fact, in many countries, including a presidential federal system like the United States, it's not the regulating body that announces the report, it's the media. They just call it. The problem we have there, and I hate to think that Nigeria is peculiar in bad things, the problem we have liars. We have people who cook up results and saying what is not true. Hence, INEC, and for INEC, Dr. Ruben Abati with the institutional voice, he's the defender.
Saying that it's
Then we have their baptism of defending the institutional
Which is fine,
vote.
and I defend it as well, which is why I made the distinction between officially announcing it enough to be headline or people sharing it on social media because they've calculated it. So I think INEC shouldn't waste as much time with that.
Excellent. That's the whole point. INEC should be proactive. And here, I follow totally.
We need to differentiate between an empirical result and whatever the INEC will eventually announce.
So I'm still going there.
Now, you see, if you look at this video, Zik Hall, University of Ibadan.
No structure.
No structure.
Now, that reminded me of Chief Tommy Kimi's case during Obasanjo. You see, Obasanjo. Now, we could see this live. I think APC had 41. Eventually, Labour Party had 87. The emphasis became an issue as from 41 plus. 42, no structure. He raised another voting card, no structure. 44, no structure. 45, no structure. 86, no structure. 87, before they cut it off. Now, the result was known on the spot. Everybody knew. So whether INEC now wants to say it has the final right to announce, we are not disputing that. Yeah. It's just the distinction between whether you append to your signature or you sign or you ratify. Even in the context of Nigeria, you domesticate. That does not in any case remove of the fact that the truth remains constant. Yeah. So in this case, you sign an agreement, an ambassador signed an agreement, but it cannot be final until it reaches the level of ratification by government. Right. And it cannot be self-enforcing until it is domesticated. So as a dualist country. Now, the same scenario exists at the level of voting. They voted in a polling unit. In Yaba, for instance, we got the reports, the voting on the spot. All right? Labour Party won in all those places. The people who are living, they know. So, INEC cannot come tomorrow and announce something.
So that's now where the other part of this conversation is. Because part of the challenge that we're seeing, and I think you've talked about it a little bit, is that the results being uploaded onto IREV is different from results that citizens took with their phones. And so what actually project is happening at the moment is creating a platform where citizens can upload their PU pictures and compare it to IREV, and then we can have a conversation around what happened and how that happened. So I think the point that we've all agreed is, yes, INEC has the powers to do official results, but they can't stop citizens from collating
final powers.
And then the IREV, the point again, to tie to what I said earlier about communication, voting stopped in some places, were counted, finished by 5, it was uploaded. IREV did not start uploading results until almost 11 p.m. Right now, we're at 45,000 of the 176 polling units. But it was until this morning that when you start asking questions, what happened, what didn't happen, INEC would have helped a lot for an election where a lot of people had hope, a lot of young people had faith in the system, as Professor Killer was saying. But then there was no information. So you begin to wonder what's happening. If they had just said yes, even if we might not like the fact that they said they had glitches, but it's still technology, things do happen. INEC does have a history of its systems being hacked. But say that, look, this is what's going on, we're trying to quickly rectify it so the results can be uploaded. Or the difference, as you noted, National Assembly gets uploaded fine, but presidential in the same machine suddenly has a problem. Or as someone says, people as a polling unit using data to tweet, but you're saying network error on a device. So, I mean, there were too many things that made people suspicious. And I think INEC didn't help itself by not immediately addressing those issues. And I think the last point I also wanted to make around the challenges you talk about with INEC within Nigeria. INEC can only operate as optimally as Nigeria operates. So they will have the challenges that come with being in Nigeria. But to your point, those are not surprises. You can plan for things you know. It should even be easier. It's Nigeria. Transport workers will disappoint. They will say they want more money, or they will just decide they're not moving because they don't feel like it. And when they don't feel like it, then what do? Then you have a system of communicating with the polling unit. This is what's going on. We'll get it to you as soon as we can. And I'll focus a lot on Lagos because one, Lagos has the largest population of voters. Number two, Lagos is Lagos. Lagos is Nigeria's commercial capital. Lagos is, I don't even know what. If we can't scenario plan for Lagos, if we can't communicate effectively in Lagos, it makes me shudder what's happening in other parts of the country where people know less.
And parts of the country that are also very remote.
Exactly.
Like you can drive for 6 hours in parts of this country and you can actually have no phone network.
Exactly.
But in Lagos, where you actually have network and connection, you have connection issues.
Yes. And then you're wondering, and then nobody's actually addressing the issue. And it really does make you wonder what exactly is going on. So yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the IREV and the BVAS point. But that point certainly needs to be emphasized because if you're uploading, I'm sure you guys have seen the video of the lady in Apapa who was basically saying, no, you can't do that. We're supposed to use BVAS. Then she's done another video now where she's saying her life has been threatened because she refused to play ball. And we're using technology to make things easy, to make things transparent. But we're brazenly, as you said, Dr. Killer, are choosing to bypass it in a country, which is within context, not too strange, but something we should plan for, or we should have planned for.
Absolutely. The youth bloc was obviously the largest voting bloc in these elections, and you know, it's interesting because there was this entire discussion before the elections about how being on Twitter doesn't translate to votes, as if Twitter and the streets are two mutually exclusive concepts. But the youth came out and proved something, regardless of what we see eventual voter turnouts to be at the end of everything. What precedence does this set ahead of future elections that we go into, and how has this pretty much changed the game?
The challenge will be if they see it as a win-win. So if young people think that the only outcome of coming out in numbers is to win, whoever their candidate of choice is, then obviously you're encouraged and gingered, if I should use that word, to come back again. But if that's your framing, and then your candidate of choice does not win, honestly, the choice is either to dig in deeper and say that, no, we're staying the course for this because this is a long play, or to just say, well, I tried, and whatever. And so you've had a lot of different narratives of people saying that if this doesn't happen, then I'm packing my bags, I've given Nigeria my last shot, I'm leaving, or people choosing not to engage in the process anymore. So I think for me, I'm not sure. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Especially, I think, there's one thing to feel that you lost fairly. There's another thing to feel that you were cheated. And I think the challenges that we're having with BVAS and IREV and things not being uploaded and wrong PU results being uploaded, if young people leave the process feeling cheated, I think that'll make it a lot harder to engage. So to the degree that, yes, voting was yesterday, but to the degree that it's possible to actually continue to put the energy into proving what they believe to be true, by crowdsourcing people's pictures from their polling units, being able to compare it to what was uploaded onto INEC's portal, continues to give ownership of the process to see to the end. So.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if Afolabi Adekaya Oja is now with us. He's a researcher and development analyst. Well, he's not ready yet. Well, Prof, I don't know whether you would like to comment on this youth issue.
Yes.
Given that you belong to another generation, but it's the generational dimension.
You are part of the youth.
What's the cutoff age?
You think there's no youthfulness is a function of the mind.
That's youthfulness, sir.
I'm coming. Wait.
I'm just saying.
You see, you are old if you think you are old. You are young if you think you are young. And I'm saying that as youth, going by the definition of the United Nations, for instance, I may not qualify because the UN says that, okay, probably
34?
Yes, to
18
to 34. Now, using that.
That's kindergarten,
So, I will not qualify in that particular perspective.
Yes.
But when you share the same sentiments with the people in that particular group, all right, you qualify to be so
Associated.
Yes. For instance, let me give you a geopolitical example. We are saying that Nigeria has francophone neighbors. So, by the principle of contiguity, they are neighbors. But France is also considered as Nigeria's territorial neighbor by the principle of propinquity. That is to say, France and Nigeria have shared policies, values the world over. In such a way now that, look, France will not want Nigeria to be capable enough to challenge, to disturb, to undermine French interests in the immediate neighborhood, and vice versa. Now, in terms of the youth that we are talking about, I think that in response to your question, there's no way anyone can say the youth who have failed in this particular election. They are not voting, by my understanding. They are not supporting candidates per se. They are only interested in change. They want a situational change. They want an environmental conditioning that will make life more comfortable, not only for them as youth, but for the whole polity. So, their intervention is such that they have compelled a systemic change. We used to have, we have moved away from Babangida's a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, and then the centuries, all those things. The youth have compelled a new situation whereby APC, PDP are no longer the dominant parties. All right? We now have at least 4 now. Labour Party and the NNPP. So that's an achievement already. So nobody can sit in the comfort of his house or her house and be thinking that, look, it is the APC or the PDP that can overrule. No, we now have major actors. And perhaps more importantly, you see, the youth in the future will be more interested in coming to participate because the door has been opened.